Okay, welcome to this screencast on mathematical expressions and vocabulary. So let's start with what a mathematical expression is. You work with mathematical expressions all the time. You have since you started math. They're very simple. They're just numbers and operations. So here are some examples of mathematical expressions. So it's like a math problem without an answer is a mathematical expression. Now, when we expand that to use variables to represent values, then it becomes an algebraic expression. So it should have at least one variable. I'm sorry that, there you go, the word's not cut off anymore. So it has at least one variable in it, a mathematical expression. So here are some examples. And all of those are examples of algebraic expressions. Notice that they have numbers and a letter, and then you're doing something mathematically with those numbers and letters, like multiplying or dividing or adding. And there you go. So you should have a graphic organizer that looks like this. And what we're going to do is you're going to be filling in the blanks. You have some of the words already, and then you're going to fill the blanks in from this video. The first thing we're going to define is the word term. So here is the complete definition, and you can fill in the parts that you need. You're allowed to pause the video now so that you get everything in. A term is any single number or single variable, or when you have a number and a variable that are connected because they're through multiplication, and that would be considered a term. So then terms are separated by addition or subtraction. That seems really complicated. I'll show you an example a little bit. You need to know there's three things you need to know what a constant is. So a constant is just any number or value. So it's called a constant because it doesn't change. So now you can fill in the blank there. If you need to pause, you can. The other term you need to know is, or vocab word is, variable. So a variable is something that can change. It could vary. So we use a letter to represent a value that's possible to change, like an amount that could change. So we use any letter. We do not typically use the letter I because that is the imaginary number. We don't use the letter O because it looks like a zero. We often don't use capitals because they're usually things that you use in formulas and not when we're creating a variable. So an X is reserved for the X-axis and Y for the Y-axis. But we use X a lot. So the other thing you know is a product. And a product is when you take numbers and variables and they're linked together to make a product. So anytime you have a letter next to a number next to a variable, that means you're multiplying those two together. The term for the number that sits in front of the variable is called the coefficient. So in this case, this right here would be called the coefficient. So you want to fill in any vocabulary. If you need to pause, go ahead. You also notice that the top expression just kind of filled in, and that goes back to what we talked about before. An expression is when you have numbers, symbols, and operations that are grouped together. And there is an example of an expression. And you notice in the expression given here, in this example, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but the first term is 12x. And 12x is a single term. It has a coefficient and a variable. And then the addition symbol is separating the other term. And the second term in that expression is 16, which is a constant.